What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to episode number 466 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. We've got a loaded show for you tonight. Got to dive into, obviously, a big Eagles win and preview an upcoming matchup against Carson Wentz and the Commanders. Philadelphia Union still fighting for that supporter shield. The Phillies looking to bounce back. They have already gotten off to their first pitch against the Blue Jays with Zach Wheeler back. We're going to get into Survivor, as we always do. Season 3 of us talking about Survivor on this show. And we'll also touch on the Water Dogs Lacrosse Club winning the PLL Championship and a Philadelphia boy taking home the MVP of that game. But before we get started, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at UndergroundPHI on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Check out the website, UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia.com, for all of our written content. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. And leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It does go a long way for helping more people find the show in audio form, gets more people talking with us underground, and that's all we want. We want more people joining this underground community, talking Philly sports with us, and of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, where you get full video episodes of every Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast. We're on that road to 1K as well, so make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, ring the bell icon. Comment down below your thoughts on the Eagles matchup against the Vikings and how that game went, your thoughts on the upcoming game against the Commanders, obviously the Union in that fight for the supporter shield. Do you think the Phillies are still going to make the playoffs? And of course, if you're a Survivor fan, we want you to tap in below with your thoughts on Survivor, but keep it spoiler-free for 24 hours. You know, keep it light for the people who may have missed out. Big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen. Main Auto LLC, Ducharme's Pro Foot, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland, Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. Just because summertime is coming to an end doesn't mean the sun's not out, and doesn't mean you're not inside watching football, baseball, playoffs, Premier League, and of course, you know, anything else that's potentially on TV. You need to protect your eyes with those Blue Light Plus glasses, and if you're watching us on YouTube, you should be wearing Tomahawk Shades Blue Light Plus glasses. They're the best in the game. Go to TomahawkShades.com and use code USP for 25% off your order at TomahawkShades.com. Kenwood Beer, it's the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia and the official beer of football season. Go to KenwoodBeer.com and use the all-new and improved Kenny Tracker to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. And our pals over at Bino, it's like paper football meets foosball. Tailgating season's here. And if you don't have a Bino board with you at your tailgate, you're tailgating incorrectly, especially for these final few regular season Union matches. And going into the playoffs, you'll be the talk of the tailgate if you have a Bino board in hand. And this coming Friday, their Team Spain board will be dropping at noon Eastern time. So go over to BinoBoard.com, check out all of their World Cup boards that they have to offer. Get yourself a custom board, accessories, merch, and use code BinoUSP at checkout for 10% off your order at BinoBoard.com. What's going on, Matt?
I am just living the dream, you know?
One thing that I did want to bring up, as you know, September is slowly but surely coming to a close. There was a tweet a few weeks ago being that, you know, your first wedding anniversary, my sister and you got married on Halloween last year, obviously. I don't know if you saw Meek Mill tweeting out that for everybody who got married in October, the 10-year anniversary, he's going to come perform for you.
Yeah, I think if I had known that that deal was on the table, maybe it would have pushed to postpone it to this year. But maybe I could write him an email and ask, like, any October,
Is it
like, because we did play Dreams and
retroactively?
Nightmares at the wedding too. Yeah, and there's two weddings that I've been at that are close to me that Dreams and Nightmares have played a key theme in either the night or the weekend, the weekend long celebration. So, yeah, maybe I have to reach out to Meek Mill about that.
We'll have to talk to Michael Rubin. He'll probably be our point of contact now that he doesn't have to deal with the Sixers or anything. But the Philadelphia Eagles, Matt, off to a hot 2-0 start. I talked about it a little bit on the most recent episode, but they take down the Minnesota Vikings. They silence Justin Jefferson from going to his post-game press conference. I'm still very disappointed in Kyle Brandt for going radio silent on that one. But the Eagles look like one of the best teams in the NFL right now, as do your Dolphins. And it's very exciting to have good football to be watching early in the season. First week 2 win for the Eagles since 2016. What a trend to break for the world to see on national television.
Yeah, a pretty complete performance too, which was good to see. I think defensively this team looked very strong in that game, and we saw the Vikings at least in the first week against Green Bay able to get like a lot of the easy looks and able to do a lot of the small things right. Felt like maybe I will say Kirk Cousins in prime time historically not a good
Officially
not a good
2-10 on
performer.
Monday Night Football.
Yeah, so whenever that's on the opposite side of the field for you, I think that's a big advantage and a nice boost. But Eagles controlled the game really well. 36 minutes time of possession to Minnesota's 23, and it certainly felt that way. It felt like Eagles were holding the ball quite a bit more, had a lot more of that possession. Yeah, and I thought just especially you start off the way you did. I think that's the good recipe for the Eagles this year because it hasn't been talked a lot about, but yeah, that defense has been reinforced in a lot of ways through the draft and through free agency. This summer I think so much has been about the offense because there was obviously a big leap taken there with AJ Brown, and so much I think of the discussion, probably rightly so, has been about Jalen Hurts and his potential step forward, and he certainly looked the part again on Monday night. I feel like maybe the defensive improvement hasn't been mentioned as much. That this could be a big factor in how the Eagles win this year.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people last season wanted to claim that, Darius Slay took a step back. And even, I think, 2020, they wanted to say that, he didn't look like the same player. Why are the Eagles giving up draft capital for him? Well, he's been proving week in and week out, I think, since, the latter half of last season and now 2 weeks into this year, why you go out and trade for a guy of that caliber. Still seems like he's playing at a top 3 DB level in the NFL. Could have arguably had 5 interceptions in that game against Kirk Cousins. He did drop one and, a couple more thrown his way, but he's going to be an anchor of this defense. I think James Bradberry being opposite of him helps a lot, to have quarterbacks have to try to make that decision of who do you want to throw towards. Now you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson on the back end as well, who, is a corner converted to safety for this Eagles team. That also, goes into the plot of who do you want to, risk throwing the ball to when you have 3 of those guys out there, not to mention Marcus Epps, Avonte Maddox, and a reinvigorated and a reinforced linebacker group that could arguably be the best set of linebackers the Eagles have had since like 2004. That's going to make Darius Slay look even better than he actually already is, and he has played at a Pro Bowl level, and right now he's playing at an All-Pro level.
Yeah, I think Darius Slay has looked really good this year, and like you mentioned, getting Bradberry, who still was good as a Giant. I think a little bit of surprise too that he ended up kind of in the way he did onto the Eagles. So yeah, a lot of good stuff I think to take away from that game and move forward, because this felt like a tricky game too. I'll be honest, coming into it, felt like one that could kind of like disappoint, so to speak. And you consider the first week you get a little bit of a scare against the Lions, who that game looks even better now when you saw the Lions' performance against Washington, how frankly like dominant they were for large stretches of that game. That offense does look better than I think we maybe expected it to be. And you saw obviously again what Minnesota did to Green Bay, a defense you'd expect to be very good this year. Felt like they carved them up a lot, and that went along with our preconceived idea, our preseason idea of what the Vikings were going to be. So to see the Eagles, lock together a performance like that is a good thing. But it's all about next week now. That's the thing too. Is it's so early in the season, 2 games in. It doesn't matter what team you're talking about. It's very hard to live and die, on week 2 performances and results, because we know. Think of the Eagles after week 2 last year, and just to what a completely different team that was to the team that finished that season, let alone to now, and then where this team will be in December.
And it really felt like one of those games where people are believing in this team, and sure, it was prime time ABC, but for the home opener, on a Monday night, for the amount of big A-list celebrities, both athlete and television and superstars that were in attendance, it felt like a bigger game really than on the surface of it being a week 2 NFL regular season game. It felt like a playoff atmosphere. The crowd was incredible, and then Bryce Harper and Kayla Harper in attendance, sitting in the Mike Trout section with Mike Trout's brother, who for some reason people on Twitter thought his brother was actually Mike Trout. I didn't understand.
They do look
that
a lot
at
alike.
all. They do.
In their defense, I see him a lot at my job.
Yeah,
actually.
same.
And every time I do a little double take.
I see the Trout family quite often. Mike's brother's a lawyer, so he's always at the day job, picking up like filing cabinets and stuff like that for his office. So I can see why the mistake is made. But then when you go back and look, it's like, oh, that's not Mike. He doesn't have a gigantic muscular frame and or large neck. And then, you have James Harden and his crew there, gets the interception ball from Darius Slay, looking like a kid on Christmas getting the autograph from Big Play Slay. And then you have Quinta Brunson, star of Abbott Elementary, which is also back tonight on TV, so that's exciting. She was in attendance. Bradley Cooper, Questlove. It was just like the who's who of attendance at the Eagles game on Monday night.
Yeah, it felt Quinta won an Emmy, and it felt like we were at the Emmys with all the celebrities there. It's good. It's cool. I feel the same way. Like when you see like Sixers games too, we see like big stars there. It just makes it feel a little more exciting. Not that you need much more for like home opener Monday night against kind of a team too that has some history. Obviously, like talked a little bit about the lead up with the Justin Jefferson stuff, and I'm glad that narrative. I feel like this is maybe the game that kind of quells that a little bit.
Yeah.
If he has like a big night against the Eagles, even if they don't win, but if he has a big night, you're still hearing about it. And you'll always hear about it. I mean, just frankly, it's never not going to be brought up in any conversation about the Vikings and Eagles. But I do think just the nature of the way the game went, and that Jefferson didn't really have a spectacular night. He didn't have a terrible night, but nothing that leapt out at you means maybe another year or two before we have to like really dredge through this minefield of a discussion.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson went 1 for 7, or Kirk Cousins, I should say, went 1 for 7 passing in the direction of Justin Jefferson while covered by Darius Slay for a 0.00 passer rating. And Justin Jefferson had 7 yards receiving in those pass attempts. He finished with 48 yards, went out and put up, backup running back numbers against Darius Slay. And I don't know why, but it felt like Adam Thielen just did not exist in that game, yet he led the Vikings in receiving. He had 52 yards receiving in that game, but I feel like I didn't hear Buck or Aikman call his name once during the game, which was astonishing.
Yeah, that's his nickname, I believe now, is the blind spot. You just don't see Adam Thielen ever. but he figures out a way somehow.
Yeah. And it was a good, promising improvement from week 1 as well, seeing the Eagles defense really step up and shut down Dalvin Cook. Obviously, they let DeAndre Swift kind of have his way with them in week 1, but to see the improvements that Jonathan Gannon made from week to week was very impressive. And now you head on to week 3, going down to Maryland, not Washington, D.C., to take on Carson Wentz and the Commanders. He spoke today to the media talking about how he, looks back fondly on his time in Philadelphia. There were ups and downs, and obviously, he wishes there were some things that he could have done better. Jason Kelce said that he's still a good friend, and they talk all the time. They talk today. I feel like this game's getting the hype of Carson Wentz coming back to the Link, but this game is on the road. I feel like the game that everybody should be really, egging on these storylines should be Carson Wentz's return to the Link. But nonetheless, first time Carson Wentz is on a division opponent now, and you got to take care of these division games. If you're the Eagles this year especially, take advantage while Dak Prescott is out for the Cowboys. And I don't know, looking at this Eagles schedule today, I was looking at it with DJ earlier today, Matt, and you look at who they have going into the bye week for these, next 4 games. Seems like, on paper, very winnable games. Against the Commanders, you have Jacksonville coming to town, so the return of Doug Peterson. You go on the road to take on the DeAndre Hopkins-less Arizona Cardinals. And then Sunday Night Football primetime, potentially no Dak Prescott, Eagles-Cowboys at the Link.
Well, you saw Cooper Rush played against the Bengals. I don't know. It might be an upgrade in many ways. But, yeah, it's weird. You have back-to-back weeks, too, with a weird, kind of outside the numbers type of narrative story about, a return in some way. And I will say, Washington and Jacksonville, yeah, you might look at them on paper and think a certain way, but they've shown to be, maybe a little more challenging than you might expect. Jacksonville obviously just absolutely demolished the Colts last week, and Washington is shown to be a little scrappy. I mean, Carson Wentz is ironically had an amazing start to the season, at least individually, and has certainly not been afraid of slinging the ball around. I do think some of his weaknesses get magnified a little more. He's not as turnover prone as people. He has the highlight reel turnover type of plays, but he's really not the most uncomfortable. It's the sacks with him. It's the decision making.
More than anything else. I was going to say the decision making is what leads to, I think, that magnifying glass.
Because you can tell it's a lot of hero ball with him, rather than just trying to fit it into tight spaces or just make the big play. But last year, Eagles took care of Washington in both games. That's obviously a pretty different Washington team, but historically has just been a team that the Eagles have been able to get one over in years past. So hope that's the same narrative we have to roll with now. But yeah, you look at the schedule and it does feel nice, but each week brings its own challenges. Arizona, you look ahead to and think should be able to beat that team. Then you watch Kyler Murray just figure out a way against a good Raiders defense, at least that front. And just, I don't know if you saw the end of that game, but it was just unbelievable watching him scramble and essentially just go Madden creative mode and just kind of run around and just make it happen. Just insane stuff. So whenever you have individual talent like that, it's always hard. And like we said, with the Cowboys, the Eagles are pretty much split with them for our entire life. So, it's very rare that either team takes both matchups. So hard to say which way that goes necessarily. But you do think you go into the bye probably with a very strong record, the way it's looking now.
Yeah, and you look, just across the board right now, if you look, obviously you can't in the grand scheme of things, but if you look at the Eagles schedule right now, through the lens of just 2 weeks of NFL action, they're the dominant team on their schedule for pretty much all of their opponents, which is very exciting. There's been very few instances in our lifetime that the Eagles have been able to win, convincing double-digit amount of wins in a season. Obviously, you had the Super Bowl year going 13-3, 2004 you go 13-3. But a lot of the time, it's that 10-6, 9-7, sometimes 11-5, but not a lot of 12+ win seasons under the Eagles' belts in our lifetime, and it would be pretty exciting if they're able to kind of figure that out and find a way to accumulate some wins against some not so great teams so far on their schedule.
Yeah, and I think that was the big talking point coming into the year too, is that the Eagles had a very favorable schedule, and I think even some of the games that again. All this in mind that it's week 2 and things can change so much, in a month, 2 months, and teams may look a little different. But yeah, you look at some of the games that you would have considered tricky games, maybe don't look as challenging right now. But as we get closer to them, or as the season goes along, things could obviously change. Thinking specifically of like a team like the Titans, right? That you might in years past that might be more of a struggle. They've looked pretty bad so far this year. Whereas the Texans, in the offseason, you think the Texans are an easy win, a team that you should be expecting to be. Been really good this year, honestly. I've hung around in games. I've made life difficult for everyone they've played so far, the Colts and the Broncos. So maybe a bit more of a challenge there. So yeah, I think it's hard when you project, totally, but I think it still has rang true that the Eagles have a favorable schedule. I think if you had to handpick some teams there on the Eagles schedule, for this year, and that's a good thing.
2 weeks in, by the time the Eagles play the Colts, Frank Reich might not be the head coach of the Colts, the way that they have gotten off to such a horrendous start this year.
Yeah, and not totally undeserved. I thought that I think he's very lucky that Carson Wentz was his quarterback last year in a sense, because not that it wasn't Carson Wentz's fault, of course. Like he certainly deserves blame, especially for that Jacksonville implosion on the final day. But the coach should be getting some blame too. And it's just kind of weird that Frank Reich got absolutely, I felt like, zero discussion at all about his job security over the summer, because I think he deserves some blame for that too. And you look at the way they started this season. Now, granted, they didn't have Michael Pittman for this last week, but still, getting like boat raced by Jacksonville is not a good feeling, and that has just been a house of horrors for them over the past few years. But this is also too, like, this is what his third quarterback that he is like outright attached himself to. It was Phillip Rivers, then Wentz, and now Matt Ryan. And again, you don't want to proclaim anything 2 weeks into the season, but can you say so far that this has been like, wow, we nailed that? And it's not like Matt Ryan was a home run to begin with. I think if you gave someone the option last year of just trading out, swapping Wentz for Ryan, you'd probably make that decision, and maybe you still would this year. But it has not started well, and that's the good thing is that division is not amazing. And even starting out the season the way they have, you could probably win 8 games and still be at least in the division discussion this year for them. So that's the bright spot, I guess. But yeah, definitely a coach you could imagine. I think there's a few teams that could be maybe a different coach. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe by the time the Eagles play the Cardinals, even. Like if I know they just extended him over the summer, but I mean that was a mistake when it happened because there was so much in flux there this summer. If they go, they lose their next 2. I think especially if Kyler Murray doesn't bail Kingsbury out for what was a terribly managed end of the game there, I don't think it's inconceivable that could be a different coach. I think Cowboy fans would love if they had a new coach by the time the Eagles played them. Yeah, even a team like the Titans, maybe just patience runs out with Vrabel. Maybe they feel that he's just kind of out of answers, and it's time to kind of transition and rebuild, and decide to cut the cord. Like that wouldn't really shock me all that much.
Yeah, I saw a tweet a couple days ago that said, "How long until we see the Sports Center notification? Nick Saban hires Cliff Kingsbury as new Alabama offensive coordinator."
Not soon enough, I think, if you're a Cardinals fan.
NFL's been wild these first 2 weeks. How you feeling about your Dolphins? Dolphins looking good, man. Great win against the Ravens. Enticing Lamar to come down to South Beach.
I just love it. And what I love even more is that no one knows how to deal with Tua potentially being good, because everyone is just, the last 2 years has all been, well, he's just not good enough. He's just not good enough. And even now, a 6 touchdown, by the way, 6 touchdown, a rarity in the NFL, not something that just happens. Like 480 yards, leads a comeback against a good Ravens team. It's like this is a bad Ravens team, and still people are throwing the asterisk on it and the caveats and this and that. And it's just like, I've never seen a quarterback have to do so much to get like any amount of respect. Like, what more could he possibly have to do? If Patrick Mahomes has that week, I'm hearing about it for the rest of my life. If Mac Jones If Mac Jones has a 3-touchdown game, I'm hearing about that for the next 5 years. So why is Tua the next day getting zero credit for it? Because here's what people do. It was great, but it's like, can't you just say, wow, maybe we were wrong.
It's the same. Him and Jalen Hurts. It's the same.
Like, why is it so? I get it. It's week 2. You could certainly make the case it was a bit. I don't want to call it a fluke, but certainly like a circumstantial type of game. Like that's obviously not going to be Tua every week, of course. But why is it so hard to just give him credit for that game and winning it? Because I tell you, like if they had lost that game, if it carried on, they certainly would have beaten him with it. And now he wins it, and it's we can't give him credit for that. It was all Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. What the hell is he supposed to do then? The whole point is that they loaded up the offense for him, and now this was going to be the year if he could work with it. And yeah, I think 6 touchdowns in the game is working with it. I don't know. Like he doesn't have to be Tom Brady. He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have to be Lamar Jackson. Like he doesn't have to be those guys like to win and be a good quarterback. I don't know. I don't know why that's so hard for people to attach themselves to. But you know what? Hey, listen, if you're not 2-0, I don't know. You know, like
Tua and O, baby.
Tuanon is back in full force, and people really need to wake up. Say that the storm is coming.
Matt, we're going to be doing this every week on the show, thanks to our pals over at Trophy Smack, the best damn belts, awards, rings, trophies, and bling ever. Immortalize your hard-earned victory and shop all of their fantasy football awards to make your league the best damn league in the game. That's TrophySmack.com. Our link is in the description on YouTube and on audio. Matt, how'd your fantasy week go? How'd the best ball go? Because right now, it's not looking good for me and my squad. We are 0-2, and I was clinging on to dear life on Thursday Night Football when Justin Herbert got injured, and I thought my season was over right then and there.
Well, we had different Thursday night experiences because I have a decent amount of Mike Williams. So seeing that first half, I was very pumped, very excited. Second half, not as much. Good week for me overall. My 2 money leagues, a comfortable win, especially Stephon Diggs really helped me out Monday night. I was very grateful for that. Lamar Jackson really carried me. I got so much Lamar Jackson this year just because I felt it in my bones. And I was pleasantly rewarded this week with with that. So 2 wins feels good. Best ball is doing pretty good. I'm in the top spot in 2 of my money best balls. So it's early though. You know, it's very, especially for best ball. You know, so much can change. Injuries. You know, as I said, Trey Lance get hurt. That hurts because he was a sort of a favorite late round pickup for me in a lot of spots. So that's a little frustrating. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, just my new king. Just love that guy to death. Love him to bits. One of my favorite players. And Lamar Jackson, Stephon Diggs, just those are my dudes right there.
I felt very good, though, with Herbert kind of, questionable. And, I was like, I got to get a backup quarterback now just to be safe. Somehow, some way, cleared waivers. Jimmy G was available. So I added Jimmy G to the roster, and I feel pretty good about that insurance policy there.
So do the 49ers, actually. You guys have that in common.
Could have traded him. Nah, we're going to keep him. See, we look like geniuses, boys.
It's so funny because the week before, so much discourse was around, especially with Dak getting injured, about how they should trade him to Dallas. And even after they signed that extension, people were talking about it and, talking about how they should trade him still, and how quickly that would have blown up in their face, what the narrative would have been about them. It's just funny the way it works out in that sense, just how quick the turnaround was to now they actually look so smart for doing that, for restructuring that contract and all that and keeping him on the team. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the 49ers story kind of develops this year. And obviously sucks for Trey Lance too, because, really exciting quarterback. I really wanted to see him play this season, and now you got to wait another year, and obviously sucks because this was really his chance to kind of develop, because he really hasn't he's not played the quarterback position all that much at a high level. Even in college, he obviously lost a season during COVID too. Like, just not a guy that has had a lot of like high level reps over the last few years. So it's another season that he's not going to be able to develop in that way, and that just that really sucks. It sucks to see injuries like that too.
Yeah, big time. So we'll see what happens with our fantasy teams heading into week 3. But thanks to Trophy Smack, go get your league upgraded with the best trophies, belts, rings, and bling in the game. Matt, the Phils are trying to give us lots and lots of heartache. They've lost 5 in a row. They're currently playing the Blue Jays right now. And a lot of people feel as if the sky is falling. They're at 80 wins, which has kind of been the cap of the amount of wins they've been able to accumulate over the past couple of seasons. And they are struggling to get to win 81, win 82, and finally finish the season above 500 and really lock in that wild card spot. But the more and more that I'm kind of looking at it, I wouldn't be mad if they're the final wild card and have a date with St. Louis. And, if all goes well, you avoid the Dodgers until the NLCS.
Yeah, there's really no favorable matchup for them.
Not at all.
I think more credit to the NL in general is just that kind of it's a dangerous path no matter what. 5 straight losses, not ideal. Not ideal getting swept by the Braves. I didn't think they played terribly against the Braves, but still never good when you have a potential first-round playoff opponent. That could be kind of viewed as a warm-up, right? Now, obviously, not everyone was playing that maybe you'd expect them to, but still, getting swept like that, not a great feeling, regardless of maybe how some of those games could have gone a little differently. But I still expect this team to – it's so weird. It's every week with them with the roller coaster of emotions. Last week we talked about, we're in a good spot. We're doing all right. We got these big series coming up. The series did not go well. Get what looked like, honestly, a football score against the Blue Jays. 18-11. Just don't see that very much. But I still expect this team, because also, too, we had the tiebreaker over the Brewers. So really it's always going to be a game extra besides what the standing boards will tell you. I still expect them to make the playoffs. I think what's frustrating is that it almost feels like this team got hot at the wrong part of the season. Like late July into August, it felt like this team really turned it on, and it would have been better if that was mid-September if they had really turned the Jets on. Really, what I think the Phillies need, and it's so ironic because over the last few seasons, they've had these great individual performances, like Bryce, winning MVP last year. You had Zach Wheeler with what should have been a Cy Young win. Aaron Nola, even going back a few years. You've had these big seasons where guys have really lifted the seas for everyone. There hasn't been that consistent guy singular this year. It's more been the Phillies have been surprisingly actually a very deep team, at least in their top 7 or 8 players across all positions, and they haven't had that MVP Cy Young type of person this year, and they could really use that. They could actually really use someone playing at a super high level right now, or just catching a lot of heat. And you hope that maybe in a week or two someone does make that step up. But yeah, the Phillies just need, I think, someone to carry them a little bit through these next few weeks and hopefully get hot for the playoffs, because that's really their hope, for winning a series. Because it sucks to say, but even if the Phillies finished, not even the last wild card spot, they're going to be the underdogs in everything, in every situation conceivably in the playoffs this year. No matter how far or short they make it, they're never going to be favored really in any series. So that's the recipe though, is catching a little bit of fire and really working your way through. And right now the Phillies just don't have that spark, and they really could use it.
Well, they do have one guy that's actually performing at kind of a historic level. I don't know if you saw Matt Gelb's article today, Matt. Yesterday, when the Phillies were in that just, onslaught of runs, JT Realmuto went 5 for 5, and he's having the 11th best season ever for a catcher in his 30s by FWAR at a 6.1 and 14th best B-WAR 5.8. And he's really been the one guy that, during this stretch that it feels like things have gone off the rails, he's picked up the slack and nobody else has been there to kind of back him up. I think this team desperately misses Rhys Hoskins and need to get him back in the lineup, ASAP. Saw him at the Eagles game as well with Bryson Stott. I think once Rhys gets back, it'll help a lot of things. Nick Castellanos being out has been a damper on this lineup as well. Because, at the time that he got injured, he was starting to figure some things out. I think once you get those two guys back in the lineup, it'll help. The one move that is really interesting to me, obviously Zach Wheeler pitching tonight, so they had to make room in the rotation. I don't know how I feel about Syndergaard being the one going to the bullpen, especially after last night seeing what Kyle Gibson did. It feels like a weird move to put Noah Syndergaard, a guy that you gave up, capital for at the trade deadline, to be a starter in this rotation and move him to the bullpen when Kyle Gibson's been very up and down this year and seemed like the more ideal person to bump out of the rotation with how successful Bailey Falter's been.
Yeah, Kyle Gibson, especially in the last month, has really taken a downturn. And I mean, you see that at this part of the year too, where guys, through the course of a full season, start to fall apart near the end, and you have a lot of fatigue, just a lot of work through that you've done. So that's frustrating. I think you can certainly call it into question. I guess the hope is that Gibson, you kind of know, like through 2 or 3 innings, what you're getting with Gibson.
Yeah.
And you, I guess, can have like that shorter leash with him. I don't know. Maybe it's just down to something with Rob Thompson, obviously knowing them better than we do, but and knowing how they might fare in those different types of situations mentally. But it does strike as a little bizarre, I would say, from the outside looking in, because Gibson has definitely been, I think, the weakest link of all. Syndergaard hasn't been blowing doors off either, but I do think Gibson has probably been the weaker of the two over this stretch. But maybe, you're trying to convince yourself that if you give him some more time to work it out, and, you might have a start or two left in the season, and, then you think about the playoffs, and hopefully you regain some form. I mean, that's a big thing too, is obviously kind of what this race to be settled, by the last, series, that Astro series, you kind of hope means nothing for both teams, especially for the Phillies, because you'd like to maybe give some guys some rest, because they have gotten a little aggressive in the last few weeks with the bullpen usage, and they have had obviously Mondays off, and I think that has benefited, at least I'm sure could benefit this team long term now, with some a little bit of rest and getting some juice back. But I think it would be nice to maybe give a team that has limped through various stages of this season, giving guys 3 or 4 days off, I think would be a really good thing.
You bring up the Astros too. I don't know if you saw our boy, the one and only Hector Neris, clinching and closing it out for the Astros to win the AL West. He was the guy who got that final pitch and was reported to be the life of the party in the locker room. And as soon as they clinched and went in, he was shotgunning beers and popping champagne and everything in the clubhouse. Yet we decided to let him walk and sign Jerry's Familia. I'll never be over it. I'll never get over it.
I just a bad choice. Made a bad choice, but go win a ring, King. I guess I don't know. It's hard to root for the Astros outside of him, but yeah, only deserved. I mean, he's been good. He has such a weird perception, and I think it's because of some of his early stuff with the Phillies that I think people really attach themselves to, and just never really let go of. But he was good. I don't get it. I don't get it. It would have made sense if he had made some smart signings, but you didn't. And yeah. I think even that's not even hindsight talking. I think that was apparent even at the time that it was just sort of a head scratcher.
Yeah, nothing will beat the edited version of Jimmy Butler saying Tobias Harris over me that absolutely hammered man, and it was Hector Neris saying Jerry's Familia over me. But speaking of, baseball and our favorite prop, the NL East run differential, it's brought to you by our friends over at Pickup. You guys can go to playpickup.com, start playing the hottest headlines in sports. The NFL is here, college football is here. Get those preseason NBA props in, and of course baseball playoffs, along with our season-long NL East run differential prop. It's all over at playpickup.com, where you can sign up with your phone number. It's free to play these props. Anybody can play, and you rack up points on your fan profiles by getting props correct. You cash those in for prizes on the Pickup Marketplace. So go to playpickup.com and start playing the hottest headlines in sports. The Atlanta Braves, Matt, they clinched their ticket to the postseason. They lead the NL East run differential with a whopping plus 171 in that column. The New York Mets still clinging on to life in the lead of the NL East itself with a plus 147 run differential. The Philadelphia Phillies at 80 and 67 at a plus 61. The Miami Marlins at an even negative 100. And then the stolen franchise, Washington Nationals, still out of the basement in terms of all of baseball, but in the basement of the NL East at a minus 213 run differential. And the Pittsburgh Pirates are leading the way for all of Major League Baseball at a minus 215 with a record of 55 and 93, which is not the worst record in baseball. That still belongs to the Washington Nationals at 52 and 97. Meanwhile, you have the LA Dodgers poised to make another deep postseason run with a whopping plus 330 run differential this season.
Christ. Remember when we were talking about them hitting 300? Like, yeah, they could do that. Now I'm wondering if they could hit 400.
I mean, with about 2.5 weeks left.
It all feels like an exercise in It all feels like an exercise in futility when you're talking about like playoff matchups and stuff, and it's like the Dodgers exist, and you're just like, we'll be all right.
The Astros at plus 208, the Yankees at plus 210. Must be nice. Must be nice.
It must be nice to not be in a division that's as hard as the NL East, though.
Right. Like, it must be nice to be in the AL Central, where 81 wins is leading the division right now.
If there's two sub-60 win teams, yeah, that'd be really cool. Like, 4/5 of that division may not be a 500 team.
And 4/5 of that division are not making the playoffs.
Right. Like, and not like, oh, they're going to miss it. Like, they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not sniffing it even.
Like, that division's so bad. The White Sox are 4 games over 500, but they have a negative 3 run differential.
And the Twins are at plus 10.
2 games under 500. They have Miami Marlins syndrome.
I just don't get it. They are Marlins. Marlins Central.
The Minnesota Marlins.
Something about being in a peninsula, that really
Oh man. But yeah, hopefully the Phillies as Rick and Morty once said, get their shit together and wrap up this postseason spot, as they are currently sitting a game and a half back of the Padres in the wild card chase. 2 games up, not including the tiebreaker over the Brewers.
God bless our Phillies.
Let's get this shit done, boys. Let's clinch the postseason berth that the Philadelphia Union already have under wraps as they continue to fight for the Supporter Shield, Matt. They're tied with LAFC in terms of points in the standings with 2 games to go, making decision day that much more exciting.
Yeah, so now the Supporter Shield has swung back into LA's favor. They won at Houston this weekend. Philly obviously drawing with Atlanta. So now you didn't have to win out, have to hope for some help, which could certainly come in terms of losses or some kind of draw by LA. Not inconceivable that they do that. Union definitely have the easier schedule. Obviously, it'd be great to win the Supporter Shield. It's another trophy to add, but really, this is all about getting prepared and keeping everyone healthy for the playoff run. And LA still has to play Portland, which is obviously a tough opponent, and then on decision day have Nashville. So definitely the tougher of the two schedules there, and could definitely open up the door still for the Union. Atlanta, that was a frustrating game, I think, in a lot of ways, but it still showcases too that just how good defensively the Union are. Still just a team that is a very, very tough opponent to play against. So still, I think in the East, it's going to run through Philadelphia, and teams will not want to play this Union team. That's something I felt very strongly about all season, even before this team was like top of the East. Still felt like that just they are the quintessential kind of built for playoff type of team, and they really limit opponent chances. And now that they've added obviously that attacking talent through the course of this year, and they've developed so well together, that I really think this is a team that could be a huge problem. They also have the lowest amount of losses in the league too. Like they've really just they've found a way to not lose, which in soccer, of course, you can do. It works out just fine. Because you can still obviously pick up points other ways. But yeah, it's just a team that can beat you in so many different ways, and I think that's what makes them dangerous. Is that Union teams of the past maybe haven't had that like multifaceted layer to their game, where the Union certainly do now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm obviously the novice here, but the Union have their friendly this weekend. Do any of the regulars suit up for that, or is that mostly just, Union 2 or, kind of backup guys?
Yeah, usually in any kind of friendly, that's more for like fitness and things like that, or it might be some sort of like commercial deal. Be pretty surprised to see any like big names playing that, especially given kind of the circumstances now around the Union season. Typically you get like a look at young players, things like that. It is like a bit strange to have it in like the such a big part of the season, but typically not a type of thing that you're going to see a lot of big name players had, and a lot of like the international players too will be away on international duty because it's the international break right now. So expect to see maybe some names you aren't quite as familiar with.
Also, not a fan that Decision Day has two different start times. Time zones stink because all the West Coast games start at 5:30 Eastern, and all the East Coast games are 2:30 Eastern. Feels a little scoreboard watchy for the West Coast.
Yeah, definitely, and I think too they're looking to change that next year. Just in general, they're looking, because Apple TV. I think the Apple TV deal starts next year. They're looking to have a much more like regimented schedule with MLS. Like really compacting it into like two days a week. I think that would help in some ways too, like with like viewership and things like that. You could program around it a little better. So I would imagine that's something they look at next year too, because I think it is a little more exciting when everyone's playing at the same time. I get you have to kind of play to different markets and things like that, but the Union could apply some pressure though, and that's the good thing.
Yeah, we want LAFC playing as tight as possible. That's for sure. But I was at Subaru Park this past weekend, and always good to be there. It's still very funny to me that I've never been there for a Union game whatsoever, but I've now been there 3 straight PLL seasons that there have been, the tour model, 4 games and 2 of them for a championship game. And one Michael Sowers wins the PLL championship MVP. He's a Philly boy. He's got the thickest Delco Philly accent you could possibly hear. Gets the WWE championship belt from Triple H, gets sent in with the PLL logo on it. And Matt, I thought it was pretty interesting. The PLL has a sponsorship deal, not a sponsor of our show, with Cash App. And they sent the winning team $50K to go party right on the spot. Giant Cash App card set up with $50K for them to go celebrate. But shout out to some Philly boys winning a championship. Michael Sowers, Chris Sabia, Eli Gobrecht, and Matt Witcher, who went to York College of Pennsylvania. And a bunch of them also went to the Eagles game on Monday night, which was absolutely hilarious. I'll have to send you the picture of the 4 of them. It looks like the most ragtag crew of gentlemen you will ever see in your life. We have an interview this week on OTB with head coach Andy Copeland of the Water Dogs, and we were talking about it before we started recording. He said Jack Hanna, who is their star rookie this year, he's wearing like an Eagles visor that Sirianni would wear. And he said Jack Hanna looks like he's on another planet. And he went to the University of Denver, and I said, yeah, his Denver is showing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Mile High City.
Yeah. So shout out to the Water Dogs and all the Philly boys. But, Matt, it is that time of year once again. Survivor Season 43 is in the fold. We sifted through the castaways last week. We don't have our ace in the hole, cheat code like we have the last two seasons. But obviously we pick our podcast winner. And so far, the first two seasons of Survivor being back, we've picked the runner-up. We're in Fantasy Survivor again this year, but Survivor gets underway. 2-hour season premiere tonight. And we got a lot of Philly people in this cast as well, which is exciting. But looking at this season, what are the expectations going in for this cast?
Well, I'm just, you led me perfectly into it. So I was going to say, you said Philly people, and my winner pick is James.
We did it again.
Here's the thing. Deshaun, I loved his smile, and I was like,
yes.
James has a similar smile, and there's something about it. Who knows? From Philly, that helps. Listen, I just think if you're from the Northeast, you're from a very diverse part of the country with shit weather, so you have to endure things that maybe someone from sunny California doesn't have to do, or hot and humid Florida doesn't have to deal with as much, right? Like, you got to deal with all the seasons. You got to deal with traffic. That helps with your stress management. Again, you've grown up around tons of people. You're comfortable having conversations. You can make friends fast. You're smart. You're street smart. Like, I just think it's a great asset. And and I think James too. To get a little game theory, he's 37. I think that's like a good age. We've had some like young winners the last few seasons. Like, that's definitely been a thing. But I think typically like your ideal kind of Survivor age is like late 20s to like 40s. Like, that's kind of the sweet spot, and he fits right in that because you're still young. You can connect with like a younger person at that age, but you certainly have like experienced a lot of life and definitely can relate to others too. So I love James. Just going off gut feeling, going off a picture. That's it. It has served us well the past few seasons. I'll say that much. It was Mike and Deshaun, and we were close.
Both times. Third times. I was nervous that for this one we're not in studio together, so we didn't get to really peruse the cast together. And I was like, oh man, what if we pick a different winner? And as soon as you said James, I said, let's go. Yeah, I felt the same way. Gave big like Deshaun vibes, gave like the trustworthiness of Mike vibes. And I also looked through the cast again, and I'm 90% sure I remember correctly, there's no Canadian women this year for the new cheat code, because the last two seasons, Canadian women have won. Kudos to them, but I don't believe we have a Canadian woman in the cast this year.
Good. That's actually really good that you did that research, because I really hadn't even thought of that, but now that's a little burden off my mind. So
that one's in the back pocket now, but there it is. We went to Sean, we went Mike, and now James is
he's
Underground
an event
Sports
planner.
Philadelphia.
There's no more stressful job than being an event planner. Like, come on. And this guy, like, he has to be good at this. He has to be. I believe so much in James. I believe in him.
I'm pulling his profile up here now for the people at home, and he's got football. James Jones is his full name. His profile here. James Jones has always been able to adapt ever since he became a fish out of water on a college campus of 13,000. And when the 37-year-old saw Earl Cole win Survivor back in 2007, he realized this was the show for him. The event planner's guest list for alliances includes purposely seeking out people who are his opposites, even if that means going against his Philly instincts and opening up his heart. There's no more perfect person for us to pick for this show than James this year.
Yeah, I love it. Earl Cole, by the way, what a great winner. Would love to have him back on the show at some point. Just a fantastic player. So if that's who you're looking up to, that's good. I like that. I like the way
It
you're
gets
thinking.
better. It gets better. Favorite hobbies: curating events, finding the best cocktails in the city, reading and writing. 3 words to describe you: confident, casual, self-aware. His pet peeves: really bad customer service, pushy salespeople. What is the accomplishment you're most proud of? Winning the United States Chess Open, the largest chess tournament in the USA, for my rating bracket when I was 12. You're playing against grown people, and I won $1,200. That was like $100,000 to me at the time. It gave me the confidence that I could do almost anything. What is something we would never know from looking at you? I grew up in the church. I was an usher and sang in the choir from age 6 to 17. My dad was a deacon and my mom was a deaconess. I have a deep faith, but it is my own faith. I don't talk about it a lot, but I am a big believer. Who is your hero and why? My mom. She overcame a lot to raise me and gave me the foundation of the person that I am today. She made sure that I was raised in a safe house, made sure I went to church to develop a moral compass, took me to Black History workshops as a child so I had a sense of self-worth. She made sure I got into the best public school in the city, then made sure I could travel the country as a middle schooler playing chess. She passed away 5 years ago, and as I grow older, I grow to admire her more each day. Which past survivor will you play the game most like? Sandra's quote, anyone but me will always be my strategy. As long as I see a path to the end, I am with people or have people in which I trust. If I don't have that, I will be an agent of chaos, Russell with charm. I am playing to win and not for 7th place. And why do you believe you can be the sole survivor? I thrive and find a certain comfort in chaos. Managing events at a club on a Friday night, anything can happen, but whatever issues pop up, you have to handle. That takes interpersonal skills if it's dealing with people, and it takes general problem-solving skills when dealing with a venue, and you still have to make sure everyone at your party has a great time.
I mean, come on. And I'm supposed to not pick this guy to win. I mean, come on.
He needs to be on this show as soon as this season ends.
I love it.
There it is.
Listen, I did not do any perusing. I did not do any profile searching. I literally just looked at our Fantasy Survivor game.
Yes.
And I looked at the headshots, and that is how I made my choice. I divined it. That is how it has worked, sort of, the last 2 seasons. So I'm rolling with that method until it fails me. But I don't think it will. I think James is going to be another. We've been very blessed the last 2 seasons with good cast, good people, good gameplay, and I'm hopeful for the same this year too.
Very excited. James, I think, is going to be a rock star. I think he's, going to be in that pantheon of us continuing to have an eye for potential and or actual winner on Survivor Season 43. But that's all we got for you guys. Make sure you're rooting for James for us to win this season. And make sure you're following us on the socials at Underground PHI on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow our Survivor account as well at Buffs and Snuffs on Twitter. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Make sure you check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/undergroundsportsphi and twitch.tv/undergroundsportsphi. Check out the website, undergroundsportsphiladelphia.com. And, of course, subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. And leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It goes a long way for helping people find the show. And subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel where you get full video episodes of every Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast. Smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below with your winner of Survivor, with who, when you think the Phillies are going to clinch their postseason berth, your thoughts on the Eagles, the Union, and anything else in between. I'm also blaming last night's loss, Matt, for the Phillies on the Flyers being at batting practice, because that just, it never fails. It's
they
just
put the stink on them. They put the stink on them.
So make sure you go check out the YouTube channel as well. Be a friend, tell a friend, as we're on that hashtag road to 1K on the YouTube channel. Big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen. Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland, Tomahawk Shades Pickup, Kenwood Beer, and Bino Board. All of their info is linked in the show notes on audio and in the description on YouTube. This has been episode number 466 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Everybody enjoy Survivor, and we'll be back talking about the Eagles, talking about the Phils, the Union, and much, much more on the next episode of Underground Sports Philadelphia. But until then, Matt and I are signing off. Peace.